We'll soon be witnessing the long-awaited premiere of Amazon's The Ring of Power, which is based on the popular novel trilogy The Lord of the Rings. This classic piece has been adapted into a movie trilogy back in the early 2000s. In recent news, it's been said that Amazon ghosted Peter Jackson after asking him to direct Rings of Power. Did Amazon really ditch the director? If you're curious to know more, make sure to keep on watching so you don't miss out. According to Peter Jackson, Amazon failed to provide him with the Lord of the Rings TV scripts. Despite being invited to be involved with the project, Lord of the Rings filmmaker Peter Jackson claims he never got to see the scripts for Amazon's upcoming prequel series, The Rings of Power. The filmmaker described being approached by the studio during an interview with The Hollywood Reporter, but when he requested to see the screenplays, the studio never responded. This resulted in a kind of professional ghosting. According to Jackson, Amazon reached him and inquired about his interest in the project. So I said, "Have you got the scripts yet? Because I know how hard the scripts were to write for the films. And I didn't know the people writing their scripts," the filmmaker narrated. They said, "Oh no, we haven't got the scripts yet, but as soon as we do, we'll send you." So I was waiting for the scripts to arrive, and they never did. The New Zealander, who directed all three Hobbit films as well as The Fellowship of the Ring, The Two Towers, and The Return of the King, continued by saying that he wasn't too concerned about the lack of a sequel. He anticipates watching it as a completely unbiased viewer. Jackson said that he doesn't wish bad things on other people, especially when making movies is hard enough. For him, creating a successful movie or television show is cause for celebration. Upon hearing the news, Amazon was quick to issue a statement in response to Peter Jackson, where they explained their side of the story. In reaction to Peter Jackson's statement that he once believed that he would at least receive the screenplays for The Rings of Power, Amazon didn't spend any time responding. Less than 2 months remain until the show's debut, which was speculated about as early as 2017, before the streamer made a significant commitment. Amazon Studios said in a statement to THR, "In pursuing the rights for our show, we were obligated to keep the series distinct and separate from the films," they explained. "We have the utmost respect for Peter Jackson and the Lord of the Rings films, and are thrilled that he is looking forward to watching The Rings of Power." This claim is consistent with rumors that surfaced in 2018 that Amazon was in contact with Peter Jackson and other potential program stars, but that no official announcement had ever been made. In light of purported sources given by THR that the estate of author J.R.R. Tolkien, who passed away himself back in 1973, was against Jackson having any participation in The Rings of Power, Amazon's statement that they were obligated to keep the program and film separate is especially noteworthy. To obtain the rights to produce the show, Amazon paid that estate $250 million. Given the remarks made about the Lord of the Rings film trilogy, it wouldn't be surprising if the Tolkien estate didn't want Peter Jackson to be associated with the adaptation. The late author's son, Christopher Tolkien, made some critical remarks about how the films gutted the original work. The planned television series, as it stands, will not take place in the same world as Peter Jackson's movies, but the filmmaker is eager to watch a fresh version of Tolkien's world, and he is undoubtedly not the only one. Now that the issue's all settled, let's move on to the Lord of the Rings lore. Let's talk about what the Rings of Power are, as well as their purpose and powers. With so little information available about the series' premise, fans are in full-on guessing mode, scouring trailers and Vanity Fair pieces for clues. So far, we are aware of a few facts. Galadriel and Elrond, two well-known figures from Middle-earth's Second Age, will appear in the program. The antagonist is Sauron, and as Frodo, Gollum, and Aragorn have not yet come of age, there is no prospect of seeing them. We also know that the series will cover the development of the Rings of Power because of the period and title. However, what are the Rings of Power precisely? Where did they originate? How many are there? And why are they significant? For those who haven't watched Peter Jackson's hit trilogy, which is somewhat tied to this series, we'll give you a brief intro of how it's connected to the series. Even if you don't recall the Rings of Power's precise purpose, if you've seen Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings film trilogy, you're probably familiar with them. The first movie begins with a prologue, which is narrated by Galadriel and sets the scene as well as provides some additional information on each of the rings. The emphasis serves to highlight the significance of the Rings of Power, even though the remainder of the film primarily follows just one of them. So, how many Rings of Power are there, and who were they given to? The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Rings, opening speech by Galadriel, provides a wealth of information on the Rings of Power. She discloses that a total of 19 Rings of Power were made, in addition to one other ring, of course. 9 rings belong to the mortal men, 3 to the elves, 7 to the dwarves, and when we sum them all up, we have 19 rings. The final line, of course, alludes to the One Ring, which Frodo will carry to Mount Doom and smite. But from where did all of these rings originate? For those who already know, Sauron, the Lord of the Rings himself, is referenced in the book's title. But let's take a step back. What was Sauron's grand strategy, and why did he ever make the rings in the first place? Sauron was a Maya, one of the middle primal earth spirits, before he became a huge eye perched atop a sinister black tower. The Maya were made by the Valar, the gods of Arda, Tolkien's term for Earth, to mold and guard the universe. Mehran, who went by the moniker Sauron, was a highly skilled craftsman. However, this incorruptible soul was somewhat corrupted, just like all excellent villains. As a result of Mehran's enslavement to Morgoth, another spiritual entity gone awry, he developed into the Dark Lord Sauron. After Morgoth was vanquished, Sauron emerged as Middle-earth's greatest villain. After settling in Mordor, Sauron remained there for centuries, formulating a grand scheme. He came out, gathered an army of orcs, trolls, and men, and then turned his attention to the elves. Sauron had to be cunning since elves were the most intelligent beings in Middle-earth and were, therefore, the most difficult to defeat. However, the elves are pretty wary creatures, so it took some planning for Sauron to appeal to them. He gave these elves magic training before persuading Celebrimbor, a prince and skilled artisan descended from one of the earliest and most formidable clans of elves, to assist in creating the Rings of Power. While Celebrimbor and his artisans crafted rings for the elves, Sauron secretly worked in the Mount Doom fires to make his own master ring. When worn by the elves, Sauron's ring would have authority over the other rings, making him the most potent character in Middle-earth. Unfortunately for him, the elves weren't gullible. They detected Sauron's treachery as soon as he put on the One Ring. In a fit of fury, Sauron demanded that they give back his gifts. 3 rings were successfully concealed, but the remaining ones either disappeared or were taken by Sauron. Now let's discuss the Rings of Power and their distinct abilities. They are called the Rings of Power for a reason. Each one of them has unique abilities. Even the elvish rings were given names. Because all of the rings were created with the elves in mind, they lengthened the lives of anyone who wore them who was mortal. Narya, the Ring of Fire, Nenya, the Ring of Water, and Vilya, the Ring of Air, are the 3 elven rings. Only Galadriel wore Nenya. Gil-galad and subsequently Gandalf wore Nenya, and Gil-galad and later Elrond wore Narya. Because dwarves are among the most obstinate species, the rings presented to them had no real influence over them and instead became a part of their treasure troves of gold and gems. It's unclear what happened to the men's rings once they turned into Nazgul. All we know is that they were controlled by Sauron most effectively. The One Ring was the most powerful and possessed all of the other Rings of Power's capabilities. The One Ring had a translation of an inscription that was revealed when heated. One ring to rule them all, one ring to find them, one ring to bring them all, and in the darkness bind them. After snatching it from Frodo, Gollum eventually threw himself into the flames of Mordor, destroying it. When the ring was destroyed, Sauron died permanently. We've got so much to discuss, but unfortunately, we're already out of time. With that, we're ending today's video about Amazon's Rings of Power. Are you excited about the series premiere? Tell us what you're most excited about in the comment section below. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel with the notification bell on, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.